Deputy President Paul Mashatile today delivers a keynote address at the launch of the Principles and Guidelines for the Use of Digital and Social Media in African Elections. And this document seeks to create awareness amongst election management bodies on threats that online platforms pose to the electoral process and its integrity. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngoba is covering those events and joins us live here in Johannesburg. Ziyanda, good morning. Big reason why these guests are gathering here and these experts are gathering in the room. Elections are hotly contested across the African continent, and they have to be managed with integrity. So misinformation, digital disinformation becoming rife certainly is a credible threat to that.
Absolutely, Iman, especially on social media, which is somewhat of a double-edged sword because it assists with disseminating information at a much faster rate than your traditional media. But of course, when there's misinformation, malinformation and disinformation, it becomes a problem, especially when dealing with the integrity of elections, which is why then the Association of African Electoral Authorities is hosting this conference for the next 3 days. And let's bring in IC Chairperson Mosotho Moepa to speak about that, because you've had to contend with many issues, in fact having to respond to fake WhatsApps, to fake videos or videos that might be old. What are you doing to deal with the disinformation, which is when it's deliberate on the part of someone to spread false information for spreading propaganda?
Well, it's a very complex issue, as you would know. We in this country have a code of conduct that says whenever an election has been called or proclaimed in proverbial terms, there are certain kinds of behaviors that cannot be, that must not be promoted or must be countenanced, and misinformation, malinformation and disinformation fall in the category of things that are outlawed, should not happen. But as you know, you don't have to, there's no gatekeeper when you're on social media. You simply push a button and the world has your message. You don't have to be in this country for that matter. You could be doing it from any point elsewhere in the world. So what we have done is we have worked with the media owners, those that own social media platforms. We are working with authorities. We are working with electoral management bodies. And we are trying to find a way in which we can use social media to help us in the work that we do, but at the same time to limit the damage it can do when it is abused. This session is a groundbreaking session because it is the first time ever on this continent that we are coming together as election management bodies, countries that have elections in this year, saying how do we begin to socialize these guidelines that we approved last year in November in Cotonou, Benin.
And the thing about social media, though, Chair, is that it's used by people. So maybe the owners of social media networks can put their own safeguards. But if you have politicians now deliberately driving certain narratives that are false to try and delegitimize institutions such as the IEC, have you had that discussion about how to deal with that?
We have. You will recall that in the previous elections in 2021, we went and worked with political parties that were contesting elections and had a service where we allowed people to put in complaints electronically when they saw something on social media that they believed violated the code of conduct. We are improving on that process. We are working with political parties. We are working with the platforms, as I've indicated. And we are trying to not just protect ourselves as commissions, but to protect political parties too. When a leader of a political party is abused in a manner that is not promoted by the code, we also deal with that issue before it gets out of hand. The challenge is that the damage is done by the time we attend because there's no proactive way to deal with these matters. I must hasten to say that the media owners on social media are investing a lot of money to see if they can have intelligence to pick up certain words and to deal with those things before they come to us as violations of the code.
Of course, Deputy President Paul Mashatile will be delivering the keynote address. How important is it for the continent, as you've said, it's groundbreaking, to be coming together in this way?
It is groundbreaking in many ways. And let me say one way in which it is. There are some countries that are battling with this, and they then resort to switching off the internet, so to speak. We are encouraging one another that is not the way to do it. It affects trade, it affects the integrity of elections, it affects the credibility of elections. We need to have these platforms open so that we can use the very same social media to get information very speedily, rapidly to our voters, but also to ensure that when we communicate, it is cheaper for us to communicate. So we need it, but it has harms that we need to manage.
All right. That's Mosotho Moepe. He's the IEC chairperson, speaking ahead of that 3-day conference to deal with the principles and guidelines of digital and social media when it comes to elections.
Zianda, thank you very much for the updates, and we're going to have some expert analysis as well on some of the trends that are affecting elections, some of the campaigns that are emerging, and what people can do about it, most importantly. So we'll certainly keep tabs on this one.